Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. My name is Marcos Eguior. I'm going to be the moderator for this panel. I myself, co-founder of Mad Lions Esports Club, and also have an experience in the video games industry and collaborating with different brands, taking them to the gaming and the esports industry. But today is not about me. It is about these gentlemen I have with me today. They are Vladimir, Max, and Jeremiah. And the panel for today, the talk is on the future look. It is about esports, fintech, and blockchain. How can we combine all of them to make something relevant out of it for the audience, for the brands, for the fans, enthusiasts, and for professionals in the industry? So, without any further delay, I would like to give the floor to Max so he can introduce himself. He'll share a bit of an anecdote in the industry, in the territory as well, and he'll introduce as well the company he's working for, what he's doing, and whatever he thinks is relevant for the panel. Please, Max.
Sure, Marcos, thank you for that. My name is Max Rubinovich. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer for Socios.com, which is a platform that essentially helps create fan engagement ecosystems using blockchain for sports and esports teams. My job as Chief Strategy Officer is, uh, I guess, a bit of a jack of all trades. I help write the high level kind of product and ecosystem architecture for what became the platform, and now do a lot of work in terms of educating and opening up new markets as we continue to expand outside of just esports and football into other verticals as well. I think if I clocked you correctly, the anecdote is my favorite thing in the gaming ecosystem, which is used to be a lot of things, but I have a baby now, so it's whittled itself down to playing Hearthstone on my phone in 20 and 30-minute increments whenever I can.
So playing Hearthstone. Okay, thank you very much, Max. Thank you for sharing your anecdote and your experience, what you're doing at socios.com. So it is a turn for Vladimir. Thank you for joining us today. Please share your name, your anecdote,
Yeah, yeah,
experience,
yeah, yeah,
and your company. What you doing?
yeah, yeah. Thank you, Marcus. Thank you, Max, for your intro. So my turn. Yeah, I'm Vladimir, CEO and co-founder of Blogspot, father of two beautiful daughters, black belt in karate, computer science education, came from cybernetics machine learning from Kiev National University. I'm Ukrainian. All my life, I'm doing the one cool things. I create cool products. I'm a tea entrepreneur since my 25. In 2018, I met my co-founder in Switzerland. So we co-founded Blogspot. We are sports tech organizations focus on the fun engagement topics. So position ourselves as a technology partner for digitalization and tokenization for the esports and traditional sports clubs. So help. Actually, our big hairy goals is not to bring technology; it's to make sports world better and open new revenue and helps the sports to grow. It's because sports world needs our help as never. So I appreciate what actually guys from Chile is doing because they also generate new revenue streams for the sports. This was actually they're looking for as never. Yeah, in esports, actually, it's from my student times playing different esports in being the students in my 20, in my 18, like it's like a Quake 3, StarCraft, Doom, and all this old-fashioned stuff.
That is the good
Old-fashioned game.
oldies, huh? The Quake and
Yeah, good oldies. It's a great time. Like a different RPG, like Heroes of Magic and others. But now, and since 2019, when we started working with the esports, and became quickly a market leader for esport fan engagement, having about 7% of market share in mobile fan engagements. So I opened a new world of esports, like a new look. Our tier 1, tier 2 esport teams like Virtus.pro, BIG, Furia, and other guys actually playing cool Dota 2 and CSGO. They show me another esports professionals, and they show me how huge the market, how fast it's growing. And actually, CS:GO is still my favorite. My
Well, you've
native
mentioned
team
a lot of games already, yeah?
Yeah, but CS:GO. But I mean, nowadays CS:GO is booming because my native team from Ukraine, NATO Winter, actually work with Max. Companies are doing super well. So they actually won 2 majors in Stockholm recently and Blast Premier just last weekend. So doing extremely well. So CS:GO is still my favorite. Yeah.
Great. Thank you for sharing, Vladimir. And now it is a turn for Jeremiah. Please take the lead.
Oh, sure. Thanks, Marcos, and just a privilege to be on a panel with such smart people like Vladimir, Max, and Hugo. So my name is Jeremiah Glodavesa. I'm the global head of brand and communications for a fintech unicorn called Nium. Nium is a global payments and card issuance company, co-headquartered in both Singapore and San Francisco, where I'm based. So just interesting for us to be on this panel because there's a lot in the intersection of both fintech, sports, both esports and traditional sports, and blockchain, where we have explorations in. And most recently, we've been working together with the International Cricket Council on a sponsorship with them that is helping them explore new fintech solutions, particularly on the payment side, and to bring that sport even further into the modern era. And for example, they just introduced a collectibles marketplace for fan moments in cricket history. So just exciting to be working together with an organization as progressive as them. Prior to joining Nium, I've got a ton of global brand experience from companies like Microsoft and Avaya, where at Microsoft I worked in the entertainment and devices division, kind of working on projects like Xbox and video games before they were even esports. Right. So I guess my anecdote would be I've spent, like Vladimir, many nights in my dorm room going through an arsenal of weapons on Doom. I think that was sort of my introduction. Yeah. And then, that has now transitioned as I kind of have gotten significantly older to kind of playing Call of Duty and basically surviving less than 5 seconds as my head gets taken off by probably some kid in the Ukraine. So excited to be on this panel. Lots to learn and share from the team. So thanks for the opportunity.
Well, thank you very much, everyone, for sharing your initial views and experience in the industry. And I guess, if I may take the floor at this moment, Jeremiah, you've mentioned that you are working at the intersection of esports, gaming, payment, blockchain, NFTs, these kind of things, right? And I guess for many people, it is still kind of a black box, complex, and they're just trying to see what is behind these apes and these new things coming to the territory. And I would say, or my first question for you would be, are these new technologies, these new things, these new intersections with blockchain, with these enabling capabilities, NFTs, payment things, just a trend that will go, or are they coming to stay? To what extent do you think the territory, and when I say the territory, is not just the product itself, the gaming itself, or the entertainment itself, but the market and the industry and the value chain and the people participating in the market, in the industry, are going to change forever because of these new things? What would you say, each one of you? Please take the floor.
Sure, and I would say that these things that you've mentioned, these trends at the intersection of sports, fintech, blockchain, and technology, are here to stay. And what we're entering into is a new era of what I would call fandom, right? So if you think about early stages of fandom, not only in esports, it was sort of a passive viewing experience, right? That then evolved into something somewhat active with the emergence of the mobile device as a secondary screen, where you would share moments with friends and family, or even kind of bragging moments with competitors. And now that what you're starting to see is an ownership opportunity in this new era of fandom that is certainly here to stay, where we've emerged from passive to now active ownership in key moments in history, and being able to trade those moments, through the technologies that you aforementioned. So I definitely think that we are entering into in the early stages of a new new era that I believe is here to stay, and will only evolve further with the onset of greater technologies from the likes of Vladimir and Max.
Yeah, I should agree with you, buddy. So that's true. And I would add, before Max, of course, share his opinion, or after. So I would say that revolution began. So actually, no one believed in NFTs and tokenization years ago, but at this moment, this market is booming. So NFT, it's definitely not a hype, and tokenization is not a hype. It's blockchain technology. Penetration of blockchain actually coming deeper and deeper in all sectors and all verticals. And sports and esports, it's not an exception. And why? Still, sports need our education, our help. So actually, we at Box was spending shit a lot of time to explain, especially in traditional sports, and Max knows it better than me. Explain what is the value, how to do things right. It's like blockchain, fun tokens, NFTs, not like a scary things. You need to run away. So it's a new opportunity for you. So a lot of education, but it's good thing that a lot of showcases and success story rounds. So sports and esports, sports even faster due to technology is part of their DNA. They're very close to these adoptions. So NFTs and fun token adoptions into organizations. So we see that market is booming. So it's a 100 billion market growing. What we need now is to help, as I say, esports teams, clubs, also athletes and federations. So it depends who we are talking to. Helps to with the explanation to build the right strategy, because it's all about new way how you engage fans. It's a new way how you open this your brand, present your brand in a digital way with a different type of use case. Doesn't matter, it's memorabilia, it's the top shots or some panini pictures. But again, so we are in the beginning. My position is revolution began, as I said, and we are a little bit more than on the beginning of the great era of tokenization in the sports media and entertainment. Max, stage is yours.
No, but thank you. You took a lot of the words right out of my mouth. I think the only thing I'd add is I think it's a lot more nascent and new and closer to the beginning than people assume it is. Because if you really look at the state of NFTs or anything relating to blockchain utility in sports, esports, tech, we're still kind of at this point to what Vlad said, right? It's all education, 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 and hype. And I think one of the biggest symptoms of how new and underutilized and still kind of fragmented and unconsolidated the space is that the big headline isn't necessarily what we're doing with it. The headline is the fact that people are using this technology to do something. It's kind of if you layer that thinking over when when the World Wide Web first came about, when people first started doing SMS and other messaging services, like we're still at the point where we're talking about how cool the underlying technology stack that lets this happen is, and that's obviously super early, right? We educate everyone about fan tokens and what they do and how they work. The goal isn't to hype up fan tokens and the fact that, in our case, we're a blockchain platform. It's to just have the use case out there and have on a tech level, a network effect strong enough that it's already connected to everything. No kids growing up ask, they don't, I kind of want to swear because Vlad swear and it made him seem really edgy. They could care less. They could give a shit that, oh, this is this type of asset, this is that type of asset, and I have ownership. It's kind of, it has to get to a point where there's an innate sense that, yeah, of course I own this thing. I don't really care about how blockchain works. Nobody really cares about how Amazon Web Services works. They just care about the end product layer, and that's it. And I think because we're not there yet, right? Because it is all education, it is all trying to almost prove ourselves that, hey, this isn't hype, right? Everyone's still asking that question: is this just a big bubble or not? That we're a lot closer to the beginning than people think, which is a good thing, right? Because if it's already so big and it's younger and more unevolved than people assume, then it's probably even bigger than we would see it grow.
So it is interesting that you've mentioned about assets, while Jeremiah at the very beginning is mentioned moments. He's, I guess, purposely used the word moments instead of assets, even though I guess moments could be assets as well, right?
Absolutely.
And you've also pivoted around the concept of becoming more active in the whole experience. And with this, I would like to give the floor to Hugo so we can engage him in the conversation. We can welcome him. And before we continue with the conversation, Hugo, we would like you to introduce yourself, say who you are, where you're coming from, what is your anecdote in the territory, gaming, esports, whatever. Beware that the gentlemen here have been playing Quake and Doom and CSGO and many others. So we would like to hear from you about it and also from your organization and what you do at it every single day. And after that, we would like to recall your view on to what extent these technologies, blockchain, NFTs, fintech, sport techs, are coming to stay or they are just a trend. Welcome.
Hey, I'm Hugo. Good to meet you all. Thank you. Sorry for being late. Technology disaster. I'm the co-founder of a blockchain called Flare. And Flare is essentially built as the first federated Byzantine agreement smart contract layer. And inbuilt to Flare is a native interoperability protocol. And one of the things that I think is very important in this space, as Max said, is you don't really care about, you don't want to see the layers that you touch. People don't really care whether it's, people don't know they're using Amazon Web Services. One of the things that Flare, I suppose, brings to the NFT space, in addition to, I suppose, scalability of the Ethereum virtual machine, which is what NFTs are largely built on today, is potentially the ability to make them seamlessly cross chains. And that's to my mind, a starting point of essentially abstracting away the blockchain layer so you don't have to care. There's lots of different ways that people do it. To my mind, the thing that really matters to me is that you don't have to trust a third party to allow the movement of these tokens. So often in our industry, we see people trying to run a lot faster and they haven't even walked yet because the technology isn't there. And so you see people trying to move tokens from one blockchain to another, and usually making a lot of compromises around essentially the ownership of that token. They essentially hand it to a custodian who issues it onto another chain. And I feel very deeply about this because I don't think that's a very logical point to be involved in blockchain. And so Flare does a number of things, but one of the things that we think it can help do is bring that genuine trustless interoperability to blockchains. One of the applications of which is being able to move your NFT from one chain to another, but hopefully in time you won't even see it's one chain to another. It'll simply be one application to another. The applications may just be on different chains, and so that's kind of what we're working on. There's a lot more behind it, but I think that's what's relevant to this discussion. We're sort of in the process. We've launched our Canary network, and we're launching our mainnet sort of early next year, we hope. And we're a partner of the GEF, looking to help them articulate and think about their NFT strategy when it comes to what they do. And I guess to go back to your sort of other questions, like anecdotes of it being in this industry, the thing that most sticks out to me is how much technical compromise people will make, which destroys the value premise to start with. And that's something that we work very, very hard against, because we do believe that the ownership of the token kind of tokens you're talking about, genuinely it matters for the future, because I don't just see games and fans as this sort of old-fashioned centralized party to some isolated entity, but I see them as potentially people, these games that we all play, potentially being future sources of earning. And so if there are future sources of earning, then you really, really need very robust forms of ownership. And that's where our sort of theoretical standpoint comes in. With regards to whether it's a fad, I don't think so. I'll just put that straightforward. I have a very implicit bias, which is I work in the space. I build a blockchain. I'm part of a team that's built a blockchain. So I naturally wouldn't think it's a fad. But I think as these things evolve over time, they'll get closer and closer to what the user needs and wants.
Great, thank you for sharing your view. I don't know if anyone of you would like to make any comment on anything that has been said by any one of you. You've got the chance.
Just only one comment that thanks Hugo for this interoperability challenge mentioned and cross-chain solutions. So like I agree that in the end of the day, it's not about protocols or blockchain. It's about ownerships and proof of ownership. I just want to say, guys, that spending time as a CEO, like hundreds of hours, maybe thousands, on the calls with Esports teams managers, chief commercial officer, head of marketing, also talking to Jorge from Medlines. So we touch topics, different topics on technologies, and in the end of the day, especially in traditional sports, it's even more sensitive. In general, this guy don't care about technology, or they actually wants to see how they can engage fans or new generation of fans, like digital natives, XYZ, whatever we call them, how they can get them closer, how they can digitize and tokenize brands and relationship with the sponsors, with the players and communities, like all this triangle, how they can enter in this tokenized world with existing assets, moments, memorabilia, meet and greets, personal training by top striker, striker from a team, whatever, and how to generate revenue. Esports is still not profitable. It's a disaster. 90% of teams are not profitable at all. Even 95. If you are not Cloud9 or OG or Astralis, so you are not profitable. So if one lead sponsor just stops the contract, you're actually about to be disbanded. So then they're really looking for new ways of revenue generation. And here actually our organizations I mean, who work in the fun engagement space, in technologies which we need to think about strategic partnerships, not for technologies, but for make kind of new way of prosperity and how to help sports world and esports in surviving these times and access new revenue sources. That's my personal belief.
So to do something on top of this technology, right? But you've spoken
Absolutely.
about fans and fandom, right? And you're mentioning that we are at the early stages of this new way of understanding business, potentially, I guess. And also about education. You've mentioned about education, interestingly, because I guess both users or fans on the one side, but brands on the other side need a lot of education as well in order to get engaged. How do we gain the trust of brands and fans on these new things that are unknown to most of them? How can we manage to go beyond the innovators and the early adopters? I guess we are still at the very beginning of the first percentage of the innovators, right? And we have to expand and get bigger. How do we do it in a way that is kind of sustainable?
I mean, I jump in here, Marcos, for a bit, just because we see a lot of that, just given our specific product that we operate. I don't think it's a very easy question to answer. I think, for what it's worth, that getting the trust of brands is kind of a moot point. You get the trust of brands by being a white hat sustainable product and offering them money.
Delivering,
They're
right?
cynical compared to fans because you don't have to contend with fandom. It's business. Or when you talk about fans, I think kind of the seemingly simple but complicated answer is that you give them a product that they genuinely care about, and I think that exists much less in the world today than people assume it does. Meaning, esports fans, don't necessarily care about NFTs for the sake of them being NFTs. If you create, the wrong moments, if you create a cynical proposition, if we make fan tokens and say this is your membership key to have a voice, but that voice amounts to less than what fans expect, or if the team is interacting with these new technologies in a way that's incorrect, meaning, right, they're not willing to make radical structural changes to an extent when it comes to our product. If it comes to NFTs, they're not willing to create the right kind of collectible libraries or create the right kind of rewards utility for what owning an NFT really means in the long term. That fans are much less dumb than I think a lot of people give them credit for being, and they can spot from a mile away that, hey, this is a cynical offering. This is a cash grab. And especially it's true in esports where fandom is very tribal, right? It's a very us versus the other atmosphere, even more so than in sports, because they've been so misunderstood for so long that they almost have a sixth sense for, wait a second, this is a commercialization of our thing, and our thing's always been on the fringe, and why is X, Y, and Z coming in here and trying to say they there's this kind of assumption that this already works well enough. Why are we trying to change it? Why are we trying to open it up and make it be about adult business? But there is a need for it. Vladimir's right? It is, a lot of these teams are money losing propositions. You have to figure out how to make this a sustainable ecosystem, because we can only go so many years in a row where every esports pundit talks about how the graph is going to overtake sports 2 years down the line, and every 2 years doesn't quite get there, and everyone's trying to figure out why. But I don't want to go in circles because, like I said, it's kind of easy to visualize what the issue is, but to say, well, we'll solve it, no one knows. I'd like to think we're trying to get closer and closer on my end, but it's not perfect, right? And fans are very, very sensitive, and they'll reject things outright. Once they reject it once, it's like a normal first impression, right? I make a terrible impression on Hugo or Jeremiah. It takes me a second to do that, but I'm going to be making that backlog up for years afterwards if I'm not careful.
Yeah, I think we need to make things easy for these fans.
Yeah.
Just to simple fan journey. Just not make things overcomplicated. Of course, esports fans are more technological, let's say like this, and esports closer to technologies than traditional sports. And that and all these old-fashioned presidents of football clubs, you're actually convincing them to mention gamification, not even blockchain. But yeah, fans need to be also educated by clubs, by teams, by esports organizations. It's also like a mission for to work with community, and also makes like things easy for on usage of the products for the fans. Bam, 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 done. Just not make it so crypto things complicated. Just a little bit like a grandma can do it. I like the same. Then technology will be more friendly. Hugo, please, I interrupt you. Sorry.
No, of course. I mean, I kind of wanted to just echo Max's point, because we see it a lot. You're going to see a lot of very cynical cash grabs. Almost to go to your point, Vladimir, I think that viewpoint that people just want to make money, or they just want to use a brand or whatever. Like you're going to have so many failures in that model, so many failed projects, and I think it's very sad, because if people stand back, there is a real chance to add value. And I do get concerned when you see a brand or some company just trying to we have to be in NFTs. You don't have to be in NFTs. Like it's not the only thing that matters in life. If you want to be in NFTs, embrace what they're for. Embrace the kind of almost like the radical ownership they give you, rather than trying to, I think, just take a brand and monetize it in an additional direction, because that won't work. As Max says, consumers are much smarter than that. And given the hurdle already, as you say, to get into owning or holding NFTs, the people that do hold NFTs, many of them are a lot. They'll see through that kind of thing, and so I think from my perspective, and I guess the conversations I have with the GEF is trying to help them come up with something, but I'm only a tiny part of the sort of resources they tap into, and trying to help them come up with something that's genuinely meaningful and is useful to the groups that they're trying to engage with, rather than just superfluous.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I would agree with that, with what Hugo, Max, and Vladimir said. I love the fan centricity of the conversation that we're having here, where you drive a compelling product, exciting moments that are genuinely authentic and appealing to fans. Brands will come. Brands like me will start to invest in areas of opportunity. But I do think that's going to be another step and hurdle that will have to be taken, where at what point is the fan going to be open to then a branded experience or a branded moment for which to then own, and is there a compelling value proposition around that? I'm not sure yet, outside of sort of affinity towards some of the major sporting properties, whether or not there's room for third parties to also participate. But I am optimistic that there will be a day for that, because I think that if you crack that nut, this market will really take off, and you will start to monetize a field that is in dire need of some sustained monetization, and I think that is going to come from further brand involvement.
Okay, so if I may summarize just a bit, you've mentioned that the important thing is, at the end of the day, how authentic brands are when creating, designing value propositions for fans. And this new era is about the fan, right? Revolving around the fan. And you've mentioned that when that happens, the market will take off. And my question asking, is this a question for you or for your crystal balls, right? When do you see this happening? When do you see the big money coming in, not just innovation budget or test budgets, but brands really taking this as part of their core strategies to engage with fans, to create value for them, and to really provide authentic value to these people? When do you see that happening? I may. I guess once again, Max, is simple question, difficult answer, right?
No, if I understand your question correctly, I think it just depends on whenever that point of market sustainability comes, or you just need one good example, right? If there's whoever does it, right? If someone, it's not us yet. We're, it's too early. Dapper Labs or anyone with kind of more mainstream ambitions. We've been around for 1 second in the scheme of things, right?
Mhm.
Once it becomes part of the conversation, oh, okay, hey, look, here's essentially a revenue corridor that's economically sound, and not economically sound because I'm hyping it up, but because people who are much better at economics than I am deem it to be so in a conventional sense. I think people come in. I think it's a matter of safety, right? The larger an organization is, the slower it moves, and that's true of sports. That's true of tech companies out by where Jeremiah is to an extent. It's easy to experiment with something, but if you're going to put like a crypto revenue stream or business vertical in your business that is actually core to everything you're doing, it would kind of cripple the company in a sense, whether it's kind of critical or not. That you have to have that kind of safety. So that's what it's going to take. I'm sure you can kind of unpack that answer in very incremental ways, but at a high level, that's what I think.
So, do you think this is, and coming back to Vladimir's point before, when he said that in the esports industry, there are issues with the funding of projects, right? The properties have issues when it comes to creating revenue streams, right? Do you think these new technologies are going to help them create more revenue streams and become a bit more independent from this more traditional approach in which they depend a lot more on sponsorships, let's say traditional sponsorship? Is this going to create new revenue streams that will get closer fans to these properties this way?
If you're asking me, Marcos,
I think it's asking.
100%, 100%, 120%. The tokenization and technology behind it's already helping sports. With so we see the last 2 years. First of all, when my partner, she's German, when he met Bayern Munich in 2017, Borussia Dortmund, pitching the presidents about the tokens. What you said? Come on, that's actually like a Mars story, yeah? Let's speak in 10 years. So now we look at what's happening with the fund tokens, NFTs, all the stuff. And where is the Bayern Munich? Or where is Bundesliga with all these partnerships, recent partnership with Sorara, etc. It means that they still need education. So they still need explanation. So traditional sports a little bit more scary about innovations. Esports guys, they're like more like bump and run, quick and dirty. So they are more ready for experiment. But what actually combine all of them, that they're looking for the new revenue streams. Maybe among you all guys on the call, as a more business executive, I spent maybe 150, 200 calls minimum. Even more 100 call with esports managers and different teams, listening actually about the pains they have, and all these pains lays in the commercial field, how to open new revenue stream. Yes, they actually don't want to use technology just because of technology. Yeah, they want to try something, but if you talk about the sponsorship, if you talk about the new revenues, if you explain how brands, existing brands can be closer, and how we can monetize the relationships with the technology, they love you forever, because you becoming the long-term partner for them, not just technology. It should be win-win. In the end of the day, the fans and the brand of the club or team, it's the most valuable assets, and the players, the most valuable assets, and try to connect all these dots and commercialize. I saw so many good teams disbanded last year in esports, and you, Marcos, maybe know even better than me. How many teams actually died? Not the biggest team, tier 2, because they lost just one sponsor, and they stopped cooperation with other service provider or partner because actually no funding to operate. Of course, they're looking for new ways how to commercialize existing assets. And if you talk in the business language to them, yeah, but if you talk in the technology way, interoperability, cross-chain, NFT, let's do it. Come on, come back after the pandemic.
And we've talked a lot about fans on this panel, and to some extent brands. But what an interesting phenomenon that I think we're going to see in the future is on the player side, right? The further celebritization of fans, of players, as they evolve to transcend the teams that they're even on. And if we can create further celebrity out of these fans, which will come with big money being offered to some of these players, you will start to see, I believe, greater brand involvement with some of these with some of these players. And I think some of that is going to be facilitated by technology. It's not just the NFT stuff that we've mentioned, but it's actually getting real-time payouts to some of these players for activities that they end up doing, and then momentization. I'm making words up now, but creating moments out of some of those paid experiences. And I think that that's going to come from technologies like what Niam's enabling, which is real-time payments in the moment to players and organizations. So I think that that's coming.
Good thing that's about the talks and last comment, guys. Just not wasting all the time of other speakers. That's the teams. Esport teams. They think in many years, like last 3-4 years, what kind of memberships or digital memberships or VIP club to offer for the fans. So they're creating this viewerships, engagement, social medias, followers, viewers, etc. But all this anonymous, like bots, haters, lovers, no fan identification. So they want to have a club where real fan can be enrolled with a token as a key to open the door. So and not creating token like a club coin. That's it's a bad meaning, the bad positioning, like a club coin or club currency. It's access to your to the digital membership with a list of benefits, and this is what actually clubs more and more thinking about how I can get fans to our memberships, to our club memberships with a certain kind of requirements, let's say like this. And tokens, it's a good technology or like good way how to engage fans, give them more benefits, let's say, to be VIP fan.
I mean, I'm biased. I obviously agree, but I'm significantly biased. I will say the tough bit there, and maybe it's to add to my earlier answer, it's that it's getting the fans to come, right? Our platform, to an extent, lives on an island. Nothing survives on an island. They have to find socios. They have to, right now, figure out what Chili's is. Why is there a transactional layer there? We have to tell them, to what Vlad actually explained, hey guys, this isn't a club currency. This isn't, Alliance fun bucks that you have to spend, and that's the way you're gonna interact with the team. We have to drill that narrative of exactly, hey, buy one or more of these tokens. The point is you hold them, right? The point is they're key. You have everything for life as long as you have one or more, and the only way you lose that is if you sell them, and that's kind of almost a counterintuitive behavioral pattern. Mm-hmm. We are seeing, kind of the velocity of casual fans coming in increase, and that's great, but it's slow. Socios, kind of the first 25, 50, 75K users, they were fans, but they were crypto enthusiasts first. We didn't have to teach them anything, and it took us years and years of work until we could even come to mainstream esports fans or mainstream football fans and have them listen, because the noise is just too much, right? Because we come with the word blockchain in the explanation, so the first story is always going to be, is this a scam? Is this a Ponzi? Is it a cash grab? Is it fly by night? Are these guys going to disappear in a year? Are fans going to be left holding the bag? So kind of moving that narrative away from, hey, this is a financial speculation play, into, to what Jeremiah was saying, this is moments, this is membership. I think it's harder than people admit it to be. It's a lot more stickier of a scarlet letter than people like to think.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I think we should start getting to an end with the conversation. Before doing so, I would like to get a couple of ideas, pairs that you've shared. Even when we were supposed to speak about the future and technology and these deep technologies and all that, you focused on value, you focus on the fans, and you focus on something that has nothing to do with technology, which I love it because it is about what do we do with technology. It is not about technology, except for just one single thing that is super relevant and that I think it is the cornerstone of the future of the industry and the usage of this technology, that is interoperability, that was introduced by Hugo, no? Right? So before we leave it here, I would like to get your 10 seconds summary or takeaways from this conversation, or your personal view for our audience, right? What would you say it is relevant to them to walk away with? Who wants to get first?
I'll go first. So, I mean, I think you mentioned that this panel was meant to be mostly about the technology, and we ended up focusing on very different things. And that's very simply because the technology will lead it in what you can then do with the value creation and what experiences you can offer. At its root, it's technological, at least in the terms of this discussion. And it's not there yet. It's far too expensive on many platforms to engage, and the methods by which you hold these tokens are complex and annoying, and perhaps getting easier over time. But even then, you run into interoperability problems. So I think that's kind of key as to why we focus on, well, what can we create, and then hopefully back out the technology there. I think the thing that I'll leave you with that possibly excites me more, in some ways more than just NFTs, is the potential to have DAO tokens. These are decentralized autonomous organizations. And I think for some subset of fans, for some subset of people engaged in any particular area, these can be very powerful mechanisms by which not only can you kind of brand, get engagement around, and revenue streams, but people with very strong opinions or super fans, you might call them, can engage in a completely different way, where they have some genuine sort of say in things. And whilst that probably doesn't translate to the largest mass market ever, to me, it's a very interesting area that I like to see people exploring. And so I'll leave that there.
Great, thank you, Hugo. So DAOs and fans, right? Thank you. Who's next? Who wants to take the floor for this wrap up?
You mentioned 10-second takeaways here. I would like to stick in 2 seconds. I'm still happy to assist esports with finding new ways how to engage fans differently, and how to monetize relationships. That's still my big hairy goal for the next years. I'm done.
Great. Thank you very much, Vladimir. Max, Jeremiah, you choose?
Sure. So I think that my takeaway would be, if you build it, they will come. And by it, I mean, if you build compelling, authentic, engaging experiences, fans, brands, elite players, teams will come. and we're at the very early stages of a nascent market that has the potential to be extremely lucrative for all involved. The technologies are in place, but there's still room for us to evolve and grow thanks to the leadership of the folks on this panel.
Correct. So the point here is being authentic, right? On all the ends of the value chain. Well, thank you. Thank you for your views, Jeremiah. Max? Your take?
Fair. I'll keep it short as well. To me, the takeaway is that it's still early, as we all said a lot of times, and I think the road has to go towards the value proposition at a fan level, an experience level, getting to a point where it outweighs the tech hype and the speculation and all this stuff that's kind of primed to see people fail and give a bad name to this kind of corner of the industry.
Okay.
Yeah, good
Great.
point, Max. Max, a good point about the project, which actually teams need a club to check very carefully. They need to make a due deals and check the behind the project who they are. So the latest news about Man City, Barca, it's another confirmation of that.
True.
So very good point. Thank you.
So who are behind the projects? What is the real
Exactly.
value?
Exactly. IML, all the things. They can't
Okay.
ignore it. Otherwise, reputation can be destroyed.
Okay. Great. Thank you, everyone, for joining today, the panel. It's been a great conversation, very relevant, interesting points for the future look of the esports, fintech, blockchain industry, the conjunction of all of them. Thank you very much for participating.
Thank
Hope
you,
enjoyed
Marcus.
it. Thank you.
Marcos.
Thank you,
Thank you,
guys.
everyone. Yep.
Thank you. Speak
Thank you.
soon, guys.
Bye.
Bye.